What about Alsace-Lorraine during World War II? Because when I say Alsace-Lorraine, most people will think of the Franco-Prussian War, where Alsace-Lorraine was annexed by the newly created German Empire. But what happened here during World War II? Did the Germans in World War II re-annex the area? Yes. And was there any difference for the people living here and elsewhere in German-occupied France? Yes. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Alsace during World War II. What I call Alsace-Lorraine in this video is a territory France lost after the Franco-Prussian War, retook after the First World War, and what was re-annexed by Germany during the Second World War. This territory encompassed almost all of the Alsace region and over a quarter of the region of Lorraine. That's the area we're talking about. A more accurate name would be Alsace-Moselle. Moselle, which is the northeastern part of Lorraine. In this video, I'll mostly refer to it as Alsace, since that was the bulk of the region. When World War I was over, the short-lived Alsace-Lorraine Soviet Republic saw the light of day, but was dissolved after the French forces moved in and the area was incorporated into the French Republic. Reintegrating the region into France was not an easy task. German became a foreign language, and Alsatian was seen as a folk dialect. The population had a hard time adjusting to French legislation and was soon confronted with the economic and political problems of France. Meanwhile, the Maginot Line was built on the Franco-German border. When France and Britain declared war on Germany in September 1939 after Germany had invaded Poland, 1/3 of the population of Alsace from Strasbourg and border cities to the southwest of France was evacuated. In May 1940, the Germans launched Operation Fall Gelb and Fall Rot, the invasion of the Benelux countries and France. France was defeated and an armistice was signed. Italy could annex some parts. There was the pro-German puppet government of Vichy France. The northwest of the country became German-occupied and Alsace was annexed into the Third Reich. Robert Heinrich Wagner became the Gauleiter of Baden-Alsace and was the head of the civil administration. He answered to Hitler directly. The administrative system was copied from the German system. Civil servants had to be re-educated to take part in the application of the Führerprinzip, leader principle, prescribed the fundamental basis of political authority in the government of Nazi Germany. Under pressure, about 1/3 of the population joined some of the branches in the Nazi Party. All what remained of France was suppressed, such as language, books, and names. The Lorraine area, or Moselle, was added to Gau-Westmark. In July, the people who were evacuated in 1939 by the French authorities could return except for the Jews. Some 50,000 people were expelled. Resistance was organized. First it was passive, but it became more and more active, for example facilitating escape routes for those who wanted to get out of the region. I'll get to that in a second. And later also armed resistance took place. But this came with a risk, because if you were caught, you'd be sent to a concentration camp. Several concentration camps were set up in the region, such as the Schirmeck camp and Struthof, where around 52,000 prisoners were held, of which 22,000 died. Concentration camp inmates originated from countries such as Poland, the USSR, the Netherlands, France, Yugoslavia, and Norway. What makes this region so unique is the tragic story of the Malgré Nous, against our will. These were Alsatian and Mosellan men that were drafted in the Wehrmacht. Why? Well, this region was annexed into the German Reich, and therefore its men could be drafted in the German army. And Gauleiter Wagner, he wanted this to happen. Now, other Wehrmacht commanders, they weren't so sure about the reliability of these conscripts, but nevertheless it happened from August 1942. Around 160,000 Alsatians and Mosellans were drafted in the German army. Most of these conscripts were sent to the Eastern Front. Eventually 50,000 of them would not survive the war. And those who were POW'd by the Red Army, they couldn't prove that they were previously French citizens or drafted against their will, and they received the same harsh treatment as their German comrades. 40,000, they avoided the draft by either joining the resistance or fleeing to Switzerland. But there was a risk, because the Germans threatened that if you did this, your whole family would be sent to a concentration camp. Now do understand here, not all of these men were victims. 12 Alsatians formed part of the notorious Waffen-SS unit that committed the massacre of French civilians at Oradour-sur-Glane. On June 10, 1944, they were tried and convicted by a French court for war crimes in 1953, but as their former commander remained in impunity in West Germany, they were subsequently pardoned. After the Normandy breakout in the summer of 1944, the Western Allies quickly liberated the most of France, Belgium and Luxembourg, and the southern part of the Netherlands, since Operation Market Garden failed. Strasbourg was liberated in November. Mid-December, the Germans launched a surprise attack in the Ardennes, Operation Wacht am Rhein, also known as the Battle of the Bulge. Hitler's idea was to push for Antwerp and deliver the Allies a fatal blow. A second attack, Operation Nordwind, was carried out in the Alsace region and was almost as large as the operation in the Ardennes. This operation was a series of German attacks to recapture the Alsace. Initially, these attacks were successful, since the Allies had no reinforcements to bring in, since these were fighting in the Ardennes. However, when the tide turned, the Germans were driven back. What remained in German hands were some small areas and the Colmar Pocket. The Allied plan for reducing the Colmar Pocket was named Operation Cheerful. On the 20th of January, Operation Cheerful started in the midst of a heavy snowstorm. Hitler declared Colmar a Festung, a fortress city, to be defended to the end. Near the end of January, German High Command concluded the Colmar Pocket was doomed to fall. Some units were withdrawn to bolster the defenses of the Black Forest in Germany. Hitler partially agreed and wanted the pocket to hold out as long as possible. On the 8th of February, Hitler gave permission to withdraw across the river. The following day, the Germans blew the final Rhine bridge at Chalampé. That marked the end of the Colmar Pocket. With that, the most of Alsace was liberated, although there were some areas around Hagenau, such as the villages of Hatten, Rittershoven, were not retaken until the March offensive into the Saar. Big shout out to my patrons, a special thanks to Philip Jordan, Jakob Moslund, Nick Terranova, Haley Berry, Mark Little-Hill, Janusz Dojomkiewicz, Joanne, Justin Trebell, Peter King, Tanya Dixie, Henry Clarkson, Rob Park, Andrea Martic, Ilya Yut, Fernando Lopez Ojeda, and Mike West. Please consider becoming a Patreon so I can make better, cooler, and more awesome content about this. You can support me via Patreon, but also via PayPal. The links are in the description. And if you'd like to learn more about the liberation of this region in the latter stages of World War II, you can click right here for the video that I made about Operation Nordwind, and right here for the video that I made about the Colmar Pocket. Thank you so much for watching, and au revoir from Strasbourg, France.